Hey everyone, Farmington Mayor Nate Duckett. Thank you for joining us for a special edition of the Mayor's Table. It's early May. We want to talk about vaccines today, and I have two special guests. The first, he's my doctor. Many of you know him, Dr. Joseph Pope, and certified nurse practitioner Rita Abboud from our local public health office. We're going to have a roundtable discussion talking about where we sit right now with the vaccine, frequently asked questions, and how do we get the ball over the goal line. You don't want to miss it. Hey everyone, Farmington Mayor Nate Duckett. Thank you for joining us on this special edition of the Mayor's Table. I have two very special guests with me today to talk about vaccinations, talk about how are we doing in that process, talk about immunity, talk about the greater scope as to why we need to get immunity here locally and abroad. And so with me today, I have Dr. Joe Pope with Pinion Family Practice. How are you, sir?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here again. And with me is our nurse practitioner, Rita Abboud, and she's with the State Department of Health.
Hi.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I thought it'd be good, Rita, if we kind of kick this off and talk about where we're at right now. And so I'm not sure what day this is going to air, but we'll say this is data from May 9th, correct? And so we want to provide some information just where we sit here by zip code. You know, we get the idea of county-wide vaccination numbers, but where are we at zip code-wise so that maybe we could, I don't know, encourage some people to get vaccinated or to at least have that conversation with their doctor.
Sure. Yeah, thanks. No, San Juan County has really stepped up to get vaccinated. Over half of our county now of eligible people have gotten vaccinated. We're at 55% of folks who have been fully vaccinated, which is really great. But, you know, one of the things that is good to pay attention to is once we break it down by zip code, kind of where we're at. And it's been drawn to my attention that I've really noticed that different zip codes have very different vaccination rates.
Sure. And
in the interest of, you know, keeping all of our towns within the county equally safe, I think it's important to talk about that a little bit. So, you know, when we're looking at the Waterflow, Kirtland, and Shiprock area, they've done really, really great at having nearly 100% of their eligible population vaccinated.
Wow.
So, yeah, they've been amazing.
Kudos to them.
Yeah, the Indian Health Service has really stepped in and collaborated with us to get that done, so that was really awesome. As we move a little further east, you know, once we get into the you know, Farmington and Flora Vista area, those vaccination rates drop down to just under 50%, so around 47%.
Okay.
Which is still pretty good. I mean, we're almost at halfway there, so that's really great. And as we get into Aztec, La Plata, and Bloomfield, those rates hover down around 29 to 34%. So about a third of those folks in those zip codes in those towns have gotten vaccinated.
That's good information. You know, we hear the 55%. I think a lot of people go, oh, well, you know, we're on our way. You know, we're going to get the herd immunity. But Farmington, the 87401 zip code being, you said it was 47%?
87401 is at 39.7.
Oh, 39.7. Yep. So, I mean, this is the zip code where everybody comes. You know, when we're talking about a regional business hub, everybody's flowing into 87401 from all these other places. And are we seeing an uptick right now in cases here locally?
So we are. We've actually been on a steady incline, unfortunately, of the number of positive cases that we have. And we're right now second in the state overall for number of positive COVID cases. We're getting very, very close to the Albuquerque area, Bernalillo County, excuse me. And so, you know, that's something that we want to keep on our radar, too, as far as keeping our community safe.
I think some of that, Dr. Pope, has to do maybe with the, you know, we have a 300,000 person population that actually comes into Farmington, we think,
MSA,
you know, in the MSA area. So we have, you know, comparison to maybe some other communities here in the state, maybe it could be anticipated that we have a little bit higher rates of infection. But we certainly don't like to hear what's going on at the hospital. And from the very beginning of this pandemic, the idea of flattening the curve and not taking over our resources that are available for health care for other health issues that people may have because they're all going towards COVID has kind of been my calling card out there saying, hey, let's keep the curve flat. But right now at San Juan, I believe this week, we're up to 35 people who are currently hospitalized. That number got as low as 5 or 6 here.
So
Just
265 cases a day, new cases
Yeah.
in that region. It feels, though, like we had made a lot of progress, and people have kind of let their guard down. And we are sort of on the 10-yard line, moving toward the goal, but we really can't stop right now. We really need to continue to do those things that seem to be working.
well, be vigilant.
And the
Yeah.
other thing is we're opening up businesses, which we must
Yes.
and will, and that naturally will cause a rise in the number of cases. So I think that if we believe masking works, we should still do masking. But I think our real way forward is going to be through immunizations.
Okay.
So that's why I am really on the bandwagon to get people immunized.
Well, this is kind of why I wanted to have you on the show. Is you're my doctor. You've been my doctor since I was 16 years old.
And look how well you're doing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, look at me now. And when I have issues, I know I can come to you. I can come to your colleagues, and you're going to tell me the truth. Now, it's up to me, of course, to determine what I do with that information.
Of course.
Because right now we're getting information in regards to vaccines in general. We're hearing noise coming from all sectors of the globe as to its effectiveness, as to whether or not it's safe, as to it being the answer to the problem of COVID, and what is mRNA vaccines versus a regular Johnson & Johnson vaccine, and which one would be right for me. And I mean, there's a lot of questions out there, and of course, there's been a lot of distrust built up between people determining where they're going to get their information. But I personally believe that and I do this as a financial advisor when I was a financial advisor. Look, the cookie cutter approach may not fit for everybody. You need to sit down and talk to somebody that they know you, they know your circumstances. In this case, they know your health background, they know what you're most at risk for, and they can tell you, is the vaccine or isn't the vaccine the best thing for you? Now, of course, I believe from your point of view, the vaccine is the answer. And maybe, Rita, you could say something too to the effect that the number of individuals who've been impacted by the negative sides of these vaccines has been fairly limited. So
Very limited.
So but you're still weighing risks, right? What is the risk of me getting the vaccine and the
every
outcomes?
moment of your life is managing risk. You get
Right.
in your car to drive, you're taking risk. But you make that calculation every day, and you get in your car and you drive as carefully as you can and watch out for the crazy people, and you do it because your life is better because of it.
Right.
The number of people who were significantly, adversely affected by the vaccine is just a tiny, tiny little handful compared to the millions and millions of people who have gotten vaccinated. But when we look at the risk of getting sick from COVID and not knowing, am I going to need to be hospitalized? Am I going to need to be ventilated? Am I going to make it through this illness? The vaccine is definitely the safer choice from that perspective. And that's what we're hoping that people will eventually see.
Sure.
And I agree that I think, going to your primary care provider, going to your family practice provider and talking with them, they know you the best. They know your health history and they know your situation. And they're
hopefully
definitely
you
a
know they
trusted
care about
voice.
you.
Right.
Personally.
Sure. Well, they're invested in it.
Yeah.
And I would think from a doctor's standpoint, if I have a patient, I want to keep that patient, and I want to make sure I've given them the care on the bedside manner and all the things that they find important to them, because I want to keep that patient for a long time. And but even to that point, I've heard from individuals who say, look, I can't get the vaccine because I'll have an allergic reaction to it. It's known that I'll have an allergic reaction. Well, where do you get that information? Comes from your primary care physician.
Well, and
That's
there
why you
are
know
a few
that.
people to which you say, you're right, you should not. That is a very vanishingly small group of people, but there are some people you say, please do not take the vaccine, or please do not take the second shot based on what you experienced with the first shot, or because of some disease state or immune compromised.
But again,
disease.
very, very, very small number of people. Lots of people with a history of severe allergic reactions are coming forth and getting vaccinated and doing absolutely just fine.
Pregnant women.
Pregnant women, breastfeeding women, people who are immunocompromised, people with organ transplants. Lots of people, coming forward to get vaccinated and doing absolutely
People
fine
with
with the vaccine.
autoimmune disorders, well, they're doing fine.
So, as a local voice here, and somebody who's obviously been paying close attention to this, because you're talking with people about it every single day, as many of us are, but you're having different conversations about it. Where do you gather your information from that you're kind of using as a means to develop your own opinion on it? I mean, we're all human. all doctors got to develop their own opinions on it, because I've talked to doctors on one side of the fence on vaccines, and I've talked to doctors on the other side. And so where do you go for information?
I mostly read my journals.
Medical journals?
Medical journals, yeah. American Family Physician is kind of always my go-to. I refer to a database called Up to Date, which is just, it's on my phone. I can look it up anytime I want. It's very current. So things like that. And it is a moving target, so you have to keep reading. And
Sure.
things change every week, especially during the pandemic.
Well, that's been maybe the most frustrating thing for people.
Indeed.
Is the fact that the not only are we don't maybe understand what the life trajectory is of this virus. Why does it go up and down and then come back up again in places that are more locked down than other places? I mean, I think that's been one of maybe the frustrating things for me here in New Mexico is I'm here in the Four Corners area, 40 minutes away. They have a whole other strategy in how they're dealing with COVID in Durango. I can go an hour this way to Arizona. Again, it's a whole other strategy in how they're doing it.
Right.
So why is my state's governor right and theirs wrong? And how do I facilitate all those crazy thoughts in my head?
I struggle as a professional to stay informed, to keep reading, to ask a lot of questions, to go to CME. For me, it's an enormous task. What must it be like for the average person out there who is inundated with information from all sources? Some of it very good information, some of it nonsense. You know, how do people know?
How do they know?
And you're right. Sometimes they need their trusted community person, and maybe it's their mayor,
Right.
maybe it's their pastor, maybe it's their counselor, and in my case, their doctor. But I will tell you that not everybody listens, even in the office when I'm making a pitch for a vaccine.
And so I'll say this. I mean, I've some close friends that when the vaccine became available to me, they encouraged me to get it, and I didn't want to get it. I mean, Dr. Pope, I don't get the flu vaccine every year because I feel like it's a crapshoot. So maybe this is going to help me. Maybe it's not going to help me. I don't know.
It moves the dial.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But
and this vaccine is really above anything I've ever seen in efficacy and safety.
But I had that trusted conversation with two very close people that I highly regard, and they both said, you should do it. You need to do it. And so I took their advice and I did it. And I'm growing a
And you
third
did
arm,
great.
and I didn't have any side effects. Now I just let it be known I had COVID, last year in November, and so I don't know if because I'd already had it, the vaccination wasn't impactful to me. I don't know.
Hard to say.
But to you're getting to the point about the mRNA, because that's another question that comes up all the time is, well, this is going to change my DNA, this is going to change my body structure, but that's not what mRNA does.
No, it actually causes the cell to create that spike protein so that antigens or antibodies can be made against that. And it's a brilliant idea. It leaves the cells unchanged. The immune system has memory of that. Of course, we don't know how long that memory is. That's why we're talking boosters now. But a brilliant way to take an off-the-shelf technology and develop a vaccine in less than a year. I mean, right? Everyone said this is going to take 10 years to develop this, but they had this technology waiting for this moment. And
Since the 1950s, I believe.
I think
It's been
I think there probably has not been such luck that disaster preparedness actually hit the target. Most, you look at the history of disaster preparedness. They're preparing for this and that, and it never happens. The disaster that hits you has nothing to do with what you prepared for. That seems to be the history of our government
Sure.
and probably most governments around the world. But this one was kind of amazing how they really knocked it out of the park.
And another thing I think that affected the streamlining of the development of this vaccine is the funding. There was enormous funding, and it was nonstop funding for the development of this vaccine because we knew that we needed a vaccine and we needed it right away. When we look at how other vaccines take years and years to develop, part of that is that, all of the different companies that are trying to develop vaccines, they're all kind of competing with each other for limited funding, and those funding cycles end every year, and then they have to reapply for a continuance on a yearly basis. But this was kind of unlimited, unending funding until the vaccine was developed. And I think that also accounts for how quickly we were able to get
that's
to
a really
this
great
point.
that's a really great point of background on that. Money makes all the difference.
And Trump administration really knocked down those regulatory barriers. You know, that's part of why it's so hard to get anything done in this country. It's just
Regulations are
they just
huge.
they just erase the red tape and says get this done, and
And we did it.
a very un-American thing to do.
Well, we did it, and we did it safely, and it's amazing that these vaccines are, 94 to 95% effective. We don't get that with every single vaccine.
Well, and there's certainly going to be, as we've seen, I mean, there's headlines of people who've gotten the vaccine, they get reinfected, but there's no guarantees. I mean, I think that's important for people to know. There's
pretty
no
rare
guarantees
story,
in this.
though, I
There's
will
no
say.
guarantees in anything in life. I mean, this can't be any different as much as you want. Our physiology, our makeup, while extremely similar, is still different.
I believe-
And how our body reacts to those things is going to be very different.
If I recall correctly, I think there's been 12 breakthrough cases in the state.
I mean, post-immunization?
So breakthrough meaning somebody who is fully vaccinated, so 2 weeks after their second dose of Pfizer or Moderna, or 2 weeks after their Johnson & Johnson dose, where they tested positive and were symptomatic for COVID. Small drop in the bucket
But
compared
none
to
of
the
those
number
people
of
had
people.
severe disease either.
And they did not have severe disease.
they had very mild
About a
disease.
third of them were symptomatic,
Yeah.
and the rest of them were asymptomatic.
Well, and maybe that's the point, too, that gets missed, is it's not just about keeping you free from it, but if you get it, the impacts of the virus are minimized. And again, no guarantees, but that's kind of the idea behind it. You could still have the virus, be immunized, and still be releasing some of that virus out into the open, just not enough to the effect that it's going to affect many people. That's as I understood it anyway.
I wonder if people remember, like 1973. I was a young Navy corpsman, and that year the swine flu was a H1N1 flu pandemic, and they developed very quickly a flu shot for it that year. It didn't get tested as much as they wished, and the politicians kind of pushed it. Says, "Oh, we got to have this. We need to be reelected." So they kind of pushed it through faster than it should have been in those days, and they put out a very bad shot that year, and a lot of people got complications like Guillain-Barré. People got sick. They didn't get any immunity from and so it was so bad that even before the flu season was over, they pulled the vaccine. It's just, and there are probably hundreds of stories throughout our public health history that are like that, where and people have developed mistrust.
Right.
And I totally understand that. And certain people have been abused, experimenting with medical causes, and they don't trust medicine in general.
Right.
So I hear you when I hear those stories.
Well, I mean, I sit in this place where I respect individuals who say, look, I don't think it's right for me. I don't want to do it. Here's my reasons why. Okay, great. And I respect those people who say, look, I think it's the best thing that I can do. Your comment prior to coming on air, we talked about the greater community good and looking at this from a scope not just about me, the individual, or even me, my family, but when the city of Farmington sits as this business hub, I mean, all these people coming in here are interacting with people who live here every day. And from that standpoint, maybe the people coming in here are healthier than the people who are currently here right now based on vaccine numbers. But to the degree that we talk about herd immunity, it was mentioned the Spanish flu came and went without the need for a vaccine, and herd immunity was achieved in some way. But
by disease itself.
Right. By
infection. But that year, so many million people died in the world. I mean, it was 2 or 3 years of that pandemic, and it was vicious. I mean, we live in a much better time.
It was a relatively shorter pandemic, I guess, than the Spanish flu. I mean, hopefully we're seeing the end of it now versus the
we don't know,
few
though, do
years.
We? India worries me.
That's our hope. Yeah.
And I guess the other point to make, why I think the vaccine is the better thing, if we could get herd immunity and we could really cut the number of cases, we could cut the number of variants. The more people have the disease, the more mutations will occur and the more variants will. And then those variants may be outside of the effectiveness of our vaccine. They may be more severe. The variant that comes from Great Britain is much more transmissible, and it makes you sicker. And it's kind of dominant in South Florida right now.
Yeah.
So I just say smother it. let's
Sure.
get busy. And
Well, the epidemiology report, it was sent to me earlier this week, or maybe it was late last week, just provided a breakdown and basically just said, look, what we're seeing in San Juan County is it's varied across races, it's varied across ages, it's less composed of those individuals who are older and have those comorbidities, and it's spreading itself out. A lot of that has to do with the fact that schools are open, businesses are open. There's been precautions taken here by Farmington Municipal Schools to go back to in-home learning to protect the seniors so that they can make it to graduation. All these things are done because we want to make sure that we don't want people to get sick, but we want to make sure that the important parts of life, graduation's I feel bad for the class of 2020 who didn't get that opportunity for in-person graduations. That's a momentous moment in somebody's life. It was a huge achievement, and unfortunately, we weren't able to celebrate it. We want to celebrate those moments now. We want Connie Mack World Series here at the end of July, right? We're going to have the Outdoor Recreation Conference in Farmington. We don't want things to get in the way of those types of events happening, because those are moments where we can celebrate as a community and say, here we are. And so, to your point, we're at the 10-yard line, and we're driving for the goal. Let's get there.
let's not let up now.
And we're still moving forward. We're still making strides every week. More and more people are coming in to get vaccinated.
Sure.
It hasn't stopped. We're definitely at a point where our events are a lot quieter. We don't have quite as many people coming in for their first doses, but nonetheless, we still have people coming in asking for a vaccine, and we're happy to continue giving it. I've had several people ask me, so when do you think this pandemic's going to end? And I always love telling them, I think Thursday at 3:30.
Right.
That's the time. I got my countdown
Promise?
clock going, right? And I think that's something important to keep in mind is we don't know a whole lot about all of this, from the smartest scientists in the world down to us here in Farmington, New Mexico. We don't know a whole lot about COVID. It's new to all of us. So we're throwing everything we got at it. And I think it's up to all of us, as a community, to keep, hitting at it from every angle that we can, because we want to go to graduation. We want Connie Mack, just like you were saying. And I think that the easiest way and the quickest way to accomplish that is by all of us coming together and doing what we need to do.
Sure.
We have community spread, and therefore when we go out in the community, we are responsible to those around us. Because if I'm an asymptomatic carrier, and I'm not wearing my mask, I could get somebody else sick who's standing in line at the grocery store behind me. So I think, as long as we can all, see that we're in this together, and the only way out of it is together, and we all need to do our part.
I don't know how much more that message could be said, Rita, honestly.
Right.
I think people are...
Very well said.
Yeah, very well said. I just, people are hearing that, and I wonder how much more it's...
Well, there's a
impacting
selfish
them.
side, too. I am not just a physician, right? I'm a family person. I love to go to restaurants. I play music.
You're a
and
musician.
I want
You travel the world to play music.
I want an audience sitting there listening to my music.
Yes.
I want to go to the movies. I want to go to concerts. I want to go travel. I'm not just... I want this over. I'm like everybody else, and I have the same long-term desire as anybody else.
Right.
We want this over. I'd say let's find a way to talk to each other and get it done.
I agree.
Because we live in the most technologically brilliant time. We have made great strides through two administrations. Just boom. If we can keep pulling in the same direction, we can really.
I think
and I'll use the word smother again. I want to smother this thing.
Right.
It's a good analogy.
There are other diseases that we have smothered. And I would like people to meet my mom, who is 85, and she grew up in Tucumcari, and she knew kids that died of polio, and she knew kids that died of diphtheria and tetanus. And you know what? We don't see those things anymore.
No.
We have a long history of advancing people's health, and I think we should continue that.
I think about the day that my kids will be talking to their grandkids about the great COVID pandemic of
Right.
2019 to 2020, whatever. And hopefully by then, their grandkids won't even know what COVID is. It'll be just this elusive thing from the past.
Well, it's an interesting phenomenon, the way that it's impacted the world in ways maybe that we thought it was going to impact us more than it has. For example, we planned for a 20% decrease in gross receipts tax revenue for the city of Farmington for this past fiscal year that's ending June 30th. We're up 17% to budget.
That's awesome.
Now, a lot of that has to
amazing,
do.
isn't it?
A lot of that has to do with obviously federal funding, stimulus money that's been pushed out there. But it's kept a lot of businesses afloat in that regard. But as the mayor, I want to see everything open, and that's been the standpoint from the beginning. How can we balance living with this in our community and still be able to go out and do the things? Allen Theaters hasn't opened here at all. And in talking with the Allens the other day, I mean,
Did they not?
They just.
I
they
thought
just
they're
opened?
going to be this,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
But
They have a plan.
yes, they have a plan. They opened up in Cruces, but in talking with them the other day, they're doing all they can to provide their own reports and studies that show that movie theaters aren't the same threat as other places that have been allowed to be open. So I mean, again, there's just a lot of
Well, I am a business owner as well, and
Right.
I'm in the best business of all. You couldn't shut us down during a pandemic, but you can really impose a lot of discipline on us. I mean, the procedures for keeping people safe in a medical office are expensive, and our business was way down, and we've done so much through telemedicine. Our lives have changed, but I will still say I'm probably the luckiest guy to be in this business versus poor Dan McMullen and Clancy's,
right.
That's been really tough. And think of all the restaurants that may not or are not going to come back.
Sure.
Already
and they're
closed,
mostly local folks.
Yeah. No, and we're seeing that nationwide, unfortunately. Now we need to get the workforce back because the workforce is not growing in those
movement on
service
that, I think.
sectors. Yeah. Hey, the city of Farmington's hiring right now. Please go to the city of Farmington's website. I want Bistide Bay to be open, but I got to have lifeguards there to facilitate that. So we definitely could see those people back, and do it safely. That's what we're trying to do.
Well,
And
it seems like one of the best things for businesses right now is consistency, right? If we consistently keep moving towards getting everybody vaccinated, and we're consistently following COVID safe practices, that keeps our businesses open. That keeps people from feeling healthy and being able to go out and shop and go out for dinner. The healthier our community is, the more they're able to be out and about supporting our local businesses. Having some consistency in our business, being able to stay open, I imagine helps with ordering supplies and anticipating budgets and, predicting successes in the future.
everything's attached to one another
Yeah.
in some way. It all, one thing will hinder another thing, which will make another thing better. It's all attached. So I certainly agree. Well, anything else in this discussion that we would want to make important for people out there to know? I mean, obviously we understand we're at the 10-yard line. I love Dr. Pope's analysis there, and we need to push
Let's not
through.
let up our guard yet. We really have some work to do. I mean, we've done incredible things already. But let's not just say it's over and move on.
Yeah.
We need to score 6 points.
We do.
or 8 or whatever
Yeah.
it takes.
This
Yeah.
last little bit's going to be the hardest. It's going to be the toughest. And I think that, all of us in the healthcare field are anxious and willing to talk to folks, about their questions or concerns about the vaccine or, COVID in general. We're happy to have those conversations. And so, again, just really encouraging folks to find that trusted person in their life that they can talk to about getting vaccinated and what that might mean for them and their family and their community.
That's kind of my message today. Find that person you can consult with, block out some of that noise, and get down to the nitty-gritty and talk about what's best. So.
And once they decide, there's lots of vaccine providers out in the community who are standing by
We were
with
going to
lots of
mention that,
vaccine.
the fact that
Yeah.
some offices are having trouble getting any vaccines. We have applied with J&J and with Moderna, and we have not received any vaccines yet. So maybe in this time of excess, because
Right.
there's such an oversupply right now, we would love to get it. We would love to vaccinate our patients. I talked to Dr. Hakes yesterday at Farmington Family Practice, and they're using J&J, I think, and maybe Moderna as well. But
They have it in
and
practice.
They have it
in
yeah.
practice.
But he had the same message. He says, "Gosh, if we could just really get our vaccination rate up, we could really beat this thing."
Yeah.
So,
Well, thank you both for joining us today and providing some insight here to the community. And I think it's a valuable conversation, again, to have with the people that you trust in your life. It's hard when you get caught up in everything that's available online and determining what is best and what is not best. You've been my doctor since I was 17. I would believe that you have the best interest in mind for me and in my life. You want to see me live to be 99 years old.
And I always pray that I'm right.
Yes. So I would come to you with that question. So, Rita, Dr. Pope, thank you for being with us today. And
Thanks for the opportunity. It was great.
absolutely.
for
And thank
having
you
us.
for tuning in. We'll have more information available to you, of course, online, the City of Farmington's website, as well as the City of Farmington's Facebook page and the Office of Emergency Management for San Juan County. If you're looking for information on how to get vaccinated, those are two great places to go. Where else should they go?
They can go to the Department of Health website or just call the San Juan County Public Health Office.
Okay.
Call your pharmacy. Many pharmacies have it, and especially the big box pharmacies are loaded.
It's
with
all over
shots
the place right now.
It's available.
So we got thousands of shots ready to go.
Get the first one you can get.
Yeah. Anyways, we thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you here next time on the Mayor's Table.